For joining the Madera Unified and UC Merced partnership team this morning. We are privileged to be able to share with you just a little bit about our journey that we started about this time last year in preparation for looking at some really targeted work for English learners and their progress in mathematics. So I'm going to start the presentation, but there's about 4 of us that will be speaking throughout. And since it is such a small group, I would say at any point that you have a question or a comment, please feel free to ask us. You don't have to raise your hand, just go ahead and ask away. So that we know who's in the room, if we could just go around and quickly share who you're with, what district you're with, what brought you to this session. I would love to hear that. We'll start right here in the front.
Yeah, sure. My name is Bella. I am actually with iReady Curriculum Associates, and so I'm excited to be here to learn more about what America's doing for your English learners in mathematics and see how that ties into our support as well.
Joanne Fleet, Madera Unified School District Trustee.
Hello, Madera Unified.
Mercedes Chad, Director of Multilingual Educational Programs for Madera Unified.
Bernice Sounds, Coordinator of English Learners for Area.
Lorena Reardon, Madera Unified.
Carlos Lamonique, I'm a university student.
Marissa Lockhart, Director of Special Programs at Northern Summit Academy, the Public Charter in Anderson.
Awesome.
Brandon Sanaga, Fresno County Superintendent's Office of Higher Education.
Cici Cool, Program Administrator for Merced Union High School District.
Byron Watkins, Windsong Productions. Yep, just tell student stories. Work with Madera a lot.
I'm Adriana. I'm the Director of Continuous Improvement at Merced County Office of Education.
David Stinson, Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Strathmore Schools.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning, and I'm privileged to be able to, again, share just a little bit about something that we think is having a large impact on our students in Madera Unified. I'm Sheryl Sisil, and I'm the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services in Madera Unified. Within Educational Services, I oversee the educational programs serving all of our English learner students as one of those areas. And oops.
Do you want the links down?
I think they're okay right here.
Okay.
Maybe a little. That's fine.
Okay.
I think.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ismael Serrano. I work for the University of California, Merced. I am tasked with our Bridging the Gap in Mathematics initiative. I've been doing this work for about 7 years.
So as part of our presentation today, we are going to share about our partnership, but Ismael's also going to share with you some of the history of the work that he's done. We'll also have our 2 teachers introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cazares. I'm a high school math teacher at Madera Unified.
I'm Jennifer Toski, and I teach 8th grade math with Madera Unified.
And they're the real reason the magic happened in this program. So if you were in the session this morning, this information I'm going to share with you next got teed up for you a little bit, but I felt like as I was preparing today to share our story, I wanted to kind of start by telling you what kind of set my brain on fire yesterday. And that was some things that Dr. J said, some things that the student speaker shared in the morning, but really thinking about in public education how we have a system that we fit into, whether we fit into it or not. We are a school district in Madera who has about 21,000 or 20,000 students. Of our 20,000 students, you can see right there, 18,385 of them are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So Madera is a community of, our students are almost all low-income students. We are 28% English learner. That number's right under 6,000. And we also have a significant number of long-term English learners, and you're going to hear that's the group that we targeted with this work. Students with disabilities, about 8%. Our homeless population, about 3%, and then we have a pretty low foster youth. But for us, significant for you to keep in mind in this work is who we serve, and that is we serve a little over 18,000 students who are considered to be socioeconomically disadvantaged, and a pretty significant percentage of our students are also English learners. Another thing that we would point out in Madera, and I'm a born and raised Madera kid, went to elementary school, middle school, high school there. The farthest I've really ever been away from home was in Fireball. And my educational career was very close to Madera and then in Madera, and born and raised there. We are a little over 90% Hispanic is the student population that we serve. So you can see that if you look at our Hispanic population and you look at our SED numbers, they're pretty much identical, okay? Aside from that, then, we have a very small African American population, very small American Indian, Asian, and Filipino, and small white population. So when you look at Madera Unified, you're seeing a rural community of mostly Hispanic students and a level of poverty that is much different than if you drive 15 miles or about 15 miles to the southeast of us. What we're going to talk about today is our English learners. This is a look at our dashboard. Babatunde's opening ceremony this morning highlighted some of the good work that has been done in our district. It's not lost on me or lost on us that in 2018 or 19, I remember very clearly knowing that there were no blue or green indicators. Not a one. That's a tough pill to swallow. And to now have a significantly larger number of our student groups and even dashboard indicators making it up there in green, as you can see, college and career indicators, green, suspension rate is green, graduation rate is green. For the first time ever since there's been an inception of colors in a dashboard, Madera Unified is yellow in English language arts and mathematics. We were really proud of that. We have a long ways to go, and today you're gonna hear me not sugarcoat that at all. I'm not here to tell you guys that what we're doing is suddenly launching us into being a district where 60, 70, 80% of our students are meeting or exceeding standard. That's not what this is about. This is about transparency, and this is about identifying kids who need opportunities and need people to believe in them, and that's what we're doing, and that's what this talk's gonna be about. But it is focused on English learners. How we sort of got here is, I feel like this slide's a little out of order. I'm gonna go this way and then try to go back. When the dashboard came out in 2023, has been similar in Madera Unified for quite some time. Most of you are familiar with words differentiated assistance. Some of you are maybe in roles where you support schools in differentiated assistance. Some of you are leading schools or supporting schools that are in differentiated assistance. When we got our 2023 dashboard results, we had an array of opportunity and many options for where we would take our differentiated assistance journey. And after looking at our dashboard at the time, it was agreed upon by a committee that had a lot of the people from Madera Unified in this room that we really wanted to focus on English learners, and we wanted to focus on their success in mathematics. And there was a big, giant, burning flame that was called middle school math in our district. And it was obvious that that's where we needed to go. So to just highlight that for you, here's Madera Unified's English learners for, this would have been
7th grade.
This is this year's 7th grade?
Mm-hmm. Last year's
They're 8th graders now.
Yes, this is the group that we started to target. So we had less than, or right at 0.5% who met or exceeded the standard in mathematics in 7th grade math. If you were an English learner last year in Madera Unified, it was not great for you. Now again, I told you I'm not trying to hide anything. There's all of the students. So we've got work to do in math in Madera Unified, and we are aware of that, and we are working on that. But when this came to be, if you're familiar with differentiated assistance, there's no money for it, which is fine, and you have to develop a plan and you have to implement it, and you have these. So we were already headed in the direction of focusing on English learners, because in 2021, our board took action to essentially direct the superintendent and his executive cabinet to focus on English learners. And that seems kind of silly if you looked at our numbers to think we had to be directed to focus on English learners. It wasn't so much that we weren't working on it, but it became the board's goal for us to ensure that English learners were moving and progressing in our district. So this partnership actually happened just right about a year ago. And when we identified who we were going to work on, that was when we started talking about the opportunities that existed. And so we decided we were going to start with and mimic a program that Mr. Serrano is going to tell you about a little bit more about. But it was creating a learning opportunity that was going to look different than the current opportunity that our kids got, and that is 50 minutes a day in a classroom learning math. So we're going to talk more about that. The other piece that you're going to hear about today is where this work is 12 months later, which we're really proud of. So here was the commitment from us as a school district. And I quoted something from the Learning Policy Institute. This is kind of why we went with summer learning. And I can recall coming out of COVID and doing a lot of research on how to close the learning gaps that had been built, and a lot of information around targeted and intensive teaching to student groups where the skills, they're either missing or they are not concrete. And so we went with our first option of creating a summer program, and summer programs that are going to be engaging, they're going to be enriching. Ours was a little bit different than what the research said you're going to hear. Ours was 4 weeks, and our kids did math 6.5 hours a day. Only math. 6.5 hours a day for 4 weeks. And they rode a bus for an hour one way to get to UC Merced. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we really do believe in the concept of the summer academy, but it's got to look different than typical summer school. It's not bringing kids in and putting them on Khan Academy. It's not bringing kids in and having teaching fellows with after-school program tutors in the classroom. That's where our two teachers come into this work so clearly. It's not only being intentional and making it an amount of time that can actually make a difference. It was about making sure that we had staff who was qualified to meet our students where they were, and you're going to hear about that as well. We also have done some acceleration academies. We just took these same kids that completed our summer academy, and they just participated in a week-long academy at Fresno Pacific. I was really concerned we weren't going to get participation. These kids came and they did a week of math again, 6.5 hours a day of math at Fresno Pacific. And again, these two fine teachers over here gave up their winter break to teach for us again after they gave up their summer for 4 weeks to teach with us. So they're my carefully selected teachers. All right, turn it over to you, my friend.
Good morning, everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Ismael Serrano. I've been working for UC Merced, as I always say jokingly, way too long. I started this work about 8 years ago. Do you remember the Casey days? We actually did Saturday Casey math academies at the Boys and Girls Club in Merced. We work with a teacher that some of you from Merced may know. He's at Livingston Middle School, Mr. Gonzalez. And so I'm going to share with you why we did this. But I wanted you to know a little bit about me. I've been doing this work for about 8 years. But if you were to give me a 3rd grade math problem, I'd probably fail. I have no knowledge of math. I've never been in the classroom. I have no intent to be in the classroom. Because there are special people that can only be in the classroom just like the ones we have here. There may be some of you out there. But I was able to do very well is to put on academies that were driven by research and data. And I'll talk about our guiding principles. And this is it. A superintendent gave me that first quote. He doesn't know where he got it, but that is what I drive in our work. We will do what is right for students that is based on research and data. Too often enough, at least in our organization and our campus, we tend to do things because they look right, they feel right. It's going to make someone look well. I don't do that. And I was very intentional when I spoke to Madera Unified about that. It is about looking at data and then being intentional who the target group was. And in the case of Madera, well, who was it? It was our English learners. Some history on our work. Let me give you some content as to these slides. We started this work, secondly, with LeGrand High School. How many of you know where LeGrand? My Merced folks should know where they're at. About 20 minutes south of Merced. We actually have coined it the LeGrand model. And what you're seeing here are 11th grade results for LeGrand High School, 3s and 4s on the state assessment. We looked at the green, which is the state for 11th graders, the red, Merced County, and then the yellow or the orange, LeGrand. And we started this work when my supervisor came to me and said, Ismael, we have a pot of money. We need to spend it by a certain time, and we need to do X, Y, and Z. What do you think we should do? Because of my relationship with Donna Alley, just retired, I said, I like to do math on Saturdays and in the summer. And in the summer, 4 weeks, and on Saturdays, 10 Saturdays. And I want us to do math all day long. If my supervisor was here, she would tell me, Ismael, that's never gonna work. It's never gonna work. Kids are not gonna give up their summer, kids are not gonna give up their Saturday, and kids are not gonna give up that time to do math all day long. And I said, yes, they will. And the key to it is people that you'll hear in a bit. Here's the schedule. With the exception of a break in the morning, a break in the afternoon, and a lunch, there is math all day long. So the question that you probably have is, how did you keep them engaged? They will be telling you in a second. I shared this picture because this was my first official academy on the state assessment, and it was taken on the last day of a 4-week academy with students from Merced Union High School. We actually targeted our African American students on the end, Delhi, and of course LeGrand. Last day of the academy after 4 weeks. Do we have just a few kids there? We have a whole bunch of them. Fast forward to this summer, we were implementing academies throughout the valley, as far south as CSU Bakersfield with McFarland. We have a strong partnership there, as we do with Madera, Corcoran, and Cartier. What did we do this summer? Between all of these districts, that's what we offered. We offered front loading for those grade levels as early as 5th grade. This summer, 2 districts have already indicated their interest in doing 4th graders. Because again, when you look at the data, where does the dip begin? It begins at 4th and 5th grade. So we want to target them early. But what we also did is we've offered original credit, where students will do 4 weeks of math, be given an assessment that's approved by the district, have other criterias, and ensure that students get original credit. I'll give you 2 examples. Math 1B, original credit. This district, without naming, implemented a new strategy for their incoming freshmen. They went with it Math 1A for a whole year, and Math 1B for a whole year, doing Algebra 1 or Math 1 for 2 years. Let's just say that from my perspective, I had some concerns around that philosophy. It's not about slowing things down for the students. It's about providing the right interventions and in many ways accelerating. And so what we did is those kids are now back on track. We had kids do Math 3 of original credit. Those kids are sophomores in pre-calculus, and they're doing phenomenal. We actually had some incoming freshmen that snuck into our academy. They submitted the permission slips. We didn't have the heart to tell them, you can't participate. Incoming freshmen's original credit of Math 3. Their fall grades are fantastic in math. And obviously also to ensure that we're accelerating our kids to eventually reach pre-calculus, calculus. Turn it over to someone here.
Sure do. Thank you, sir. Are we the first middle school focused group that you did, or have you worked with middle schoolers also?
I started with LeGrand, as I mentioned. Then I went to middle school, and in talking to teachers, my focus moving forward will be elementary. Middle school has been done at least for the last 6 years. And again, when I look at the data, yes, middle school is the issue, but we see a trend. Where does it start?
So here is a picture of our group. And they had the privilege of going to UC Merced. So to start with, if I were going to tell you any of what I consider to be really important, is that you have a partner university, community college, state college, someplace to take the students to. Our kids absolutely were excited to go to UC Merced for the summer. And we did a winter academy, which I mentioned, at Fresno Pacific, and we're currently in the middle of the 10 Saturday Academy at Fresno Pacific. And so, not that I would want to steer you away from doing some sort of, targeted intervention if you can't get a university or a community college partner, but I can tell you that moving the students to a location other than their middle school or their high school has, to me, helped create the atmosphere that these students needed to be in that was a little bit different. Now, this is here's a challenge that we started with. And I'm gonna look at my superintendent and he's gonna give me like a thumbs up or thumbs down as I tell this story if I start telling too much, because this involves some pretty serious stuff. The weekend before we started, so we have 3 middle schools, okay? And we did a lot of recruitment, and at the start of this program, we had 54 kids that had turned in the permission slips, we had met with the parents, we had done all that work to get them there. But 3 different middle schools. Now you guys know, if you come from a town that has pyramids or models where the high school and the middle school and all the elementaries are a feeder program, there can be some animosity, there can be some I don't want to say, rivalry, there's a word. So the weekend before our academy started, there was a quinceañera happening in our community where a incoming 8th grader from Thomas Jefferson, which is one of our middle schools, was murdered. And it's alleged that the person who did that might have also been a student at one of these middle schools. So now we're gonna bring these kids together the weekend after that happened. So they can talk to you a little bit about what it was like to bring rival kids who might have had affiliations. This was, can I say that?
Scary.
Yes, okay.
Awesome.
it was a gang-related incident, and we were gonna bring all these kids together a Monday after this happened on Saturday to start this program. So they had to do a little bit of work in terms of even getting these kiddos to wanna be in a room, wanna be together. We put them on a bus and sent them, on an hour-long bus ride. But there was some challenges right off the bat. The other thing is, this picture doesn't show what these kids looked like on day one. On day one, they wouldn't take their hoods off. They didn't want to be in a picture. They didn't want to show their face. They didn't want to talk. Again, if I didn't mention this, we're talking about long-term English learner students who were identified based on being the lowest performing students in our district on our interim district assessment, which we use the NWEA math assessment. So in the spring, we gave that assessment, and at that time, there was a group of students, we looked at long-term English learners who scored in the lowest, they were the lowest performing students in our district. That's how they were invited to be here. So this is taken towards the end, and you see a lot of faces, a lot of smiles, and a lot of pride. They can tell you that that didn't happen overnight. That was not how it started when we began. But again, there were challenges that we didn't even see coming as we started this program. Some of the pieces, and I've been to many conferences and sit in rooms like you all are sitting, so this is probably what I'm gonna share now is what you really want to hear, and then what our teachers have to share, because to me, this is what you need to do this program. If you want to emulate something like this, these are to me the non-negotiables, okay? First and foremost, I'll talk about the staff that I listed on the right-hand side, because these people weren't necessarily in the 4-week academy, but these were the people who did all the legwork to get us to where we actually had kids show up on day one in the bus and start this program. So for us, our multilingual educational department was very, very involved in this. They helped with recruitment, they helped with phone calls, they helped with filling out applications. All these kids have to fill out an application, and so many of our parents were not able to do that on their own, so the team of educational services people, multilingual department, my executive assistant, and many of the administrative assistants, they could tell you that, they sat side by side 50 to 60 parents and helped them fill out this application. We did multiple recruitment nights, so we went to the parents, we went to the schools, we did it in person, and that was really key for getting the students there. I recall very clearly with students sitting with their parents and the looks on their faces when their parents were like, yes, my kid's gonna do this summer academy. And I thought the kids were gonna cry. I was like, oh man, they're not super excited about doing mathematics for 4 weeks. But when it was all said and done, we held on to a large number of those students, and they really, I think, are committed to this now. The other piece that we provide all the technology. So somebody from your district's gotta be the one that's gonna get the laptops or the MacBooks or the iPads or whatever you're gonna use. So our technology services was also very, very, a big part of this initially, making sure the software was downloaded on there that we used. So those are like the extra staff. Some of them are here today, but some of them are not here. But this program, and I know Mr. Serrano would tell you that without the work of the people listed over there on this side, we would have not had any kids there. Coordinating the buses and the transportation. The other piece, how many of you guys are looking for ways to spend your expanded learning dollars? Okay, if you've got expanded learning dollars, that's how we paid for breakfast in the morning, that's how we paid for our transportation, that's how we paid for all the supplies for this program. So making sure that, as you know, expanded learning dollars, it has to be open to everybody, which we invited a ton of kids. We have to prioritize your unduplicated pupil count. This kind of checks that box right away. So we were able to also utilize some additional dollars to supplement this grant. Now I'll talk about what's kind of right there in the middle. We have our instructors. I cannot, I believe they're the most important part of this. I'll just say that. I mean, there's a lot of important parts to this, but you gotta have teachers who are committed to developing the lessons, developing new lessons, engaging lessons, and they're gonna tell you what it's like to teach 7th graders 6.5 hours of math a day. I'm sure there were days where they thought, wow, what are we doing here? Because Mr. Casades taught this same model, but in high school. He had never taught middle school, and Ms. Toski was a middle school teacher and was thinking, oh Lord, what I get myself into. I see these kids 50 minutes in a period every day, and it's a challenge. So they're gonna talk to you about that, but I can tell you from our perspective, you're not gonna just, you don't wanna just take the teacher who's looking to make $60 an hour over the summer to supplement their vacation income. Like it's I would say getting the right people is one of the most important pieces. We also, I mentioned after school program earlier, we have district chaperones that we utilize through teaching fellows. So we worked through our expanded learning director. She worked with our teaching fellows, and we had chaperones. So we had a chaperone ride the bus, got to schools in the morning where the kids were at, had breakfast with them, made sure they had their Chromebook, made sure they had their charging cord, made sure they had whatever they needed, got on the bus, rode the bus with them, stayed in the classroom, helped support in the classroom, and then rode the bus home and stayed with those kids until they got picked up at the end of the day. So utilizing, I don't know how many of you have the opportunity or have that as an option, but they're definitely, I would say that's a non-negotiable. There has to be somebody that the district's gonna provide that's gonna be there to support the time that's happening outside of the classroom. The learning assistants. If you have an AVID program, that's where I would say you could start with, but it doesn't have to be AVID. It could just be some high school juniors and seniors who really, maybe you have an education pathway. There's lots of different places you can look to garner those students from, but making sure that the learning assistants were key, because these were middle school kids and we had high school kids coming in and serving basically as small group tutors and supports in the classroom. And they made such a connection with these middle school kids. I mean, they made an amazing connection. I would say next to the 2 teachers, they were part of the magic sauce for sure. And we utilized AVID tutors. It just so happens that Mrs. Cisneros' husband is the AVID coordinator for one of our high schools, and she's like, hey, why don't we get the AVID tutors? And so it worked out. So using those people is really important. And then we have the UC Merced coordinator and administrator. So UC Merced also employs staff that supports this program as well. Anything I forgot? Okay. Here's our attendance, and this goes back to what was earlier stated, that kids will not come do math. There's no way they're gonna come during their summer, get up every morning. They had to catch the bus at 7:10.
7:10.
Yeah, I mean, so again, they're getting up before 6 a.m. in the summer to get to school to catch a bus at 7:10, to ride a bus for an hour and ride a bus home. So the way this table is, and I hope it makes sense. We started with 54 students that showed up on day 1. When you look at the numbers here, we had 12 students, then there was a total of 18 days. We said 4 weeks, but it's 18 actual days. So of our 54, 12 had 100%. They came every single day. You can see down to 15. So when you add all those numbers up, we had a pretty good turnout. We had into the 40s that attended 70% of the days or more. And so we were really proud of that. I think when we ended, it was 42 that were there pretty much almost every day for the entire 4 weeks.
Before you continue,
Yep.
that attendance rate has been consistent for the last 7 years with the accounts. So this was not a one-time thing, because that's a question that I get. Do kids attend? And the answer is yes.
All right, I'm gonna turn it over to the 2 who made all this work happen. They're gonna tell a little bit about themselves and then get into the work.
All right, so hi everybody, my name is Sergio Cazares, and I am a high school math teacher, as it says up there. I have experience teaching Math 7, Math 2, dual enrollment, stats, and AP Calculus. I've also worked for summer academies for 4 years now, so this was a nice marriage between my district that I work for and the summer work that I do. We finally got to put that together, and it was awesome. Now, before we dive into what we do in the classrooms, I think it's better if I just show you. So does everybody have a pencil and something to write on? Yeah? Okay, now before I do that, are there any, quote unquote, I hate this term, but are there any math people in the room? 1, all right, 2, okay, all right, cool. So this is gonna work perfectly. This is the type of problem we give our students, all right? So I'm gonna say it, and you will have, I'm not gonna give you all the time I would give students, but just so you get a little taste of it. Your task is simple. Add up all the numbers between 1 and 100. That's it. You can use a calculator if you like, but no Google. All right? Add up all the numbers between 1 to 100. So that's 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. Don't skip anything, all the way up to 100.
And
Any questions on the task?
No asking Siri.
Yeah. Any questions on the task? No? Okay, I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Feel free to share methods if you have any. All right? And go crazy with it. 1 to 100.
This is the average.
Anybody get it?
Well,
Don't ask me to solve it, as you can see, I'm not working on it. Remember, I can't solve a third grade problem.
There is an easier. There is a quote unquote easier way. You're right about that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and bring it back now. Thank you for indulging me in that exercise that I love doing with my students. So normally we would give our students 30 minutes on everyday classroom, right? 50-minute blocks, maybe if you have an hour. I don't know what type of system your school runs on, but at Madera Unified we do 50-minute blocks on that every day. This problem would probably take at least 2 to 3 days to actually gain the full experience of it. Because there's so many different methods to go about. You could do the 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 right that way, but then students eventually start thinking, maybe there's a better way. And then just that simple problem right there is what we do in these academies, because we have time for it, and we can do it. And we have the luxury of saying, I'm not gonna give you the answer until you figure it out, Like, I'm gonna work with you, but you're not waiting for a bell, and then I'll give you the answer. It's not that. It's not this strategy, it's something totally different. So, before we continue, I would also like to give my colleague a chance to introduce herself, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the day-to-day workings of the academy.
So my name is Miss Toski, Jennifer Toski. I'm in my 3rd year teaching math with Madera Unified. I'm gonna be honest, when I heard about this program, I got a random flyer through my district email. So I'm surprised I even saw it, because you lose all those emails. But I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I met with Mr. Serrano, and he told me these students. I figured it'd kind of be like summer school, where I'm switching students every hour and whatever. I was already signed up to teach for summer school at my school. And he said, no, you're teaching the same kids all day. And I go, math. All day. And then he said, and it's incoming 8th graders, and I teach 8th grade. So I'm like, I'm gonna teach my kids, math, all day, the same ones. And he goes, yeah, they'll have a break in the morning, they'll have a break in the afternoon, and then they'll have lunch, but it's math all day with the same kids. I was like, are you sure? And we showed up first day, and I'm gonna be honest, I was nervous. I was nervous because I probably have a little bit of a unique background with as a math teacher. I was not a math person in school. I'm very honest with my kids. I'm very honest with all my colleagues. I said this in my interview for my teaching position. I failed my freshman algebra class. I had to spend summer school at Madera High taking Algebra 1. And that was with taking pre-algebra 7th and 8th grade year because I didn't do very well my 7th grade year. When I went to college, I thought it every year, man, if I flunk out of college this year, it's gonna be because of math. It's gonna be because of math. But I went to Fresno State. There's an amazing professor there named Howie Hugh. He really changed everything for me. And it was that like kind of aha moment you feel sometimes in math where it's like, well, I'm not just dumb. I don't just like not understand math. I just learn it differently. And it really drove me to want to become a math teacher. Why I was like, okay, like let's do it. I'll do it. Let's see how this goes. And I hope that I can change some things for these kids. And it really did go amazing. But I want to go into it knowing that I was not a math person. But it's able to change for these kids. And I think if I had the opportunity, like these kids have, maybe my path would have been a lot different. And I wouldn't have, failed that high school course and lost my summer. So.
Can you speak to the population that we were asking you to serve? And it's surprising you because that is because you serve through our academies a different population. Can you share with them what you felt?
I think I went into it kind of knowing what to expect as far as like behavior, like students, like what they knew coming into it, because I see these students. I teach 8th graders, so these kids, they come to me, every year, so I kind of had an idea of what to expect.
Right. And for me, I taught middle school for half a year, and I will never do it again. But under the right settings, I will, and this program allows the right settings. So we have that support of the chaperones being in the class and tutors being in the class, and the ratio is 1 teacher to 20 students.
As opposed to 1 to 36 or 38,
So
yeah.
it's non-negotiable in our work.
So, but backtrack a little bit. I started working with Mrs. Serrano on these academies 4 years ago, and I started working with Farmersville and Parlier students. And then after that, I worked with Livingston and Merced students at UC Merced. And then this was the first year that I had to work with Madera students. Now, the only difference is all these towns are relatively small, so similar demographics. However, those academies in the past were accelerating academies. Students that wanted to be there were typically good at math, and we were trying to get them to like maybe skip a math level, right? Maybe get original credit for some course. So students came in with that mindset, I'm gonna learn. These students, as we showed you, severely struggle with math, and a lot of them hate it and don't want to be there. So the first day, it was a room like this. We had 50 students walk in, and you could feel the tension in the room. It was really nerve-wracking for me as an educator because I had to teach them in about 30 minutes, and I had to make them love math in 4 weeks, and I had to make sure I was doing a good enough job so they could come back and give themselves the opportunity to do something difficult, because that's the main thing that I think math teaches you. I don't love math, I don't, but I love what math can do for you, and it can give you some confidence that nothing else can give you, because so many people say they hate math or suck at math, so if you can do it, that's confidence through the roof. So that's what we wanted to give these students. But yeah, we felt the tension definitely the first day, and even the first week. We were struggling with behavior issues, trying issues, just attempting something.
Like on a normal school year, you can have students there that are sitting the entire 50 minutes in a math class who don't even pick up a pencil because they absolutely refuse to do any work. So coming in we felt that, and we had students, it was July, in the middle of all the heat, and they're wearing their hoodies, keeping their hood on, wanting to have their AirPods in. We're coming in with, their classmate just being murdered the weekend before. And it was I think we both knew it would be kind of a challenge coming into it.
And so we want to talk about what these are the 4 things that instructors are not responsible for.
So my biggest thing coming into this, again, I went right from teaching, in the school year, I went right into summer school, and then I went right from summer school into this academy. And I'm a single mom of 2. I'm in my master's in credentials program. I'm tired every day, all day. So I think going into this academy, that was like my scare of like, okay, I'm exhausted already. I'm gonna come into this. I know these students. I just taught summer school and I know what I had to handle there. So getting to come into this academy and not having to deal with these things were huge and made it such better for me as a teacher to be so much more intentional with what I was teaching and what I was able to plan and what I was able to actually do with the students during the time that I had them. So behavior and discipline, I think any teacher would tell you that it takes up majority of your class period. Just trying to get your students to calm down and get into a lesson and get them to pick up a pencil. So not having to handle behavior or discipline. If we had any issues, the chaperones would take the students out of the class, talk to them. If anything continued, then Mr. Serrano would speak to them, would call their parents. Again, that's a huge thing as a middle school teacher. I could send 3-4 students to SRC every day, and then that's 3-4 parent phone calls I have to make after school, and then still trying to tutor after school or do everything that I have to do. So not having to handle those things were big. And like Mr. Casara said, in the first week and a half, that was the biggest challenge, was discipline, like setting those expectations for the students and holding them to those expectations. So there was actually 3 students who were dismissed from the academy because of behavior issues that did not stop. But those 3 students came back to our winter academy, like they were offered another opportunity. They came back to the winter academy, stayed the entire week, and all 3 of them are back for our Saturday academies now too. So I think even just behavior-wise, like it's such an improvement. They're not used to being held to a certain standard, and I think those 3 students, they learned from their mistake in summer and losing out on the opportunity, and they came back and have really started excelling. One of them, we took our pre-assessment last Saturday. He was one of our highest scoring kids. So it was big, and seeing them attend every day, I gotta say, probably you see Merced's chicken nuggets that probably kept them coming back. Yeah, those kids, when we got to the dining halls, they were zooming to those chicken nuggets with all that food, man. And then supplies, like we did not have to worry about any supplies, anything that we needed. We just needed to let Mr. Serrano know it ahead of time, and then we would have it provided for us. I think it was the end of the 3rd week, we did an activity where you'll see it in a little bit, but we focused on operations with fractions, and they did a worksheet. Yes, don't get scared. A worksheet, but the answer to the fraction problems was the amount of a specific ingredient to make ice cream. So they got to do that. Every single one of those kids got to make their own little bag of ice cream, and we had toppings for them and everything, and it was, I'm sure, a highlight for a lot of them.
A week in advance, when they were going to do that activity, they said, Mr. Serrano, we need the following supplies. They said, send me a list. The day before, I was at Bonds, boom, 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 spent about $300 on supplies. You should have seen, I don't think we have pictures, but these kids were learning math at 105 degrees.
Yeah, it was hot.
And doing math.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the 4 key elements of making the classroom feel like fun and engaging, and how to keep them coming back. So the first thing is preparation. Now, I love working these academies for 2 main reasons. 1, you get to see students grow so much, and that's just really fulfilling. But 2, this is like the perfect PD to give to your teacher. Because I mean, they have to come up with 6.5 hours worth of material to keep these students engaged. You have to start being creative at some point, right? So textbooks won't work anymore. So you come into a work and you're thinking, gosh, what am I gonna do for 6 hours? I wanna teach them fractions, but we can't do 1,000 fraction problems because that would be boring even for us. So how do we mix this up? So key here was preparation, planning, that is really important.
We did several games with them and activities. So we did the ice cream activity. We had 2 separate classes, but we came together and did a huge scavenger hunt with them with, I think it was fraction problems.
Oh yeah, they went crazy.
Yeah, so we did a lot of activities with them.
And the second thing is consistency, meaning we don't have a strict deadline. We have 4 weeks, obviously, but there's no district or any pressure saying you have to get in a CSA by this date, and everybody has to take it, and it has to be put it into Illuminate or whatever you use, right? If we needed an extra day, which a day in an academy is like a week of school or maybe more because of the amount of time that we have and the amount of focus. If you needed an extra day on something, we just talk to each other. Sometimes I would leave my classroom, go to her classroom, and it works because I have chaperones and tutors in my classroom, so they're never alone. And we can quickly say, hey, I need another day. Okay, cool. And then we move on, right? So we're never leaving kids behind. We're never saying, we gotta move on to the next thing. We gotta move on to the next thing, right? It's about making sure they understand it.
And it is like, from a teacher standpoint, sometimes during the school year, because we have those deadlines, you know, that, especially math, like we feel, and I think sometimes we're quick to give students answers or quick to give a solution to a student. And I can tell you, we made a lot of kids mad by when they asked a question, you know, my answer all the time was, well, you tell me. And they got pretty annoyed, but they got very used to like they're not just gonna give me the answer, like I gotta prove it, you know? So.
I can share that the first day, I remember this one student would refuse to pick up a pencil. And an hour passed. And eventually he got the point that he had to pick up a pencil. Like, it was either sit there, do nothing, or eventually engage in the activity. I was not gonna give him the answer, and yeah, by the end of the day, he was one of our top performing students. So it just took that consistency of like, you are gonna do this. And I'm gonna help you, but I'm not gonna give you any answers. The third thing is mistakes. Really tell them, you know, you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. I know as adults, we all learn that now, that mistakes are a part of learning, but students really struggle with that. They just see it as, you can never do it. And in this academy, with the types of problems we gave them, I mean, just the one that I gave you, you're bound to make mistakes. Like, it's gonna happen. But the great thing is that it's such a accessible problem for students that they can get back up and try it again. Right, so that's the main thing here. The last part is instilling a growth mindset. This academy cannot be, and this is my personal opinion, but it cannot be about making sure students understand standards. It has to be more of a personal growth journey. Because if they grow internally, then everything else academically follows. So if you're gonna do this academy, I highly suggest you work on the personal growth, instilling confidence within students, and yes, through math. But once they do that, they do the rest. And we can share the types of problems they were doing day one versus the types of problems they were doing the last week, and you will see a huge growth.
Mr. Wisnowski, did you have a set standard of curriculum? This is what you can do this week, and then we got to move on?
Nope.
That was the other selling point.
Never curriculum.
When I met with Mr. Serrano, was he said, well, you're gonna be teaching incoming 8th graders, and then I said, well, what do I have to teach them? And then he said, whatever you want. And I go, you mean I have freedom to choose what I'm gonna teach them? And I think that'll lead us to our next slide. Being an 8th grade math teacher, I think I had a little bit of insight to what foundational skills these kids are lacking coming into 8th grade. And really this feels like across the board and becomes like a huge challenge to me for sure, is I have to reteach foundational skills before I can begin teaching any of the 8th grade standards, because they all lead off of the other standards and the kids don't know them. So how do I teach them something without foundational skills to like encourage them on? So when we came into this, I was like, I know what I want to teach them. I know what they need to know going into 8th grade and what is going to help them. So we gave a pre-assessment on day one, and we kind of color-coded it here. So there's 2 standards that are a 5th grade level. And that was operations with fractions. You show a kid a fraction, and immediately they are checking out. They're like, nope, don't understand it, not even gonna try. And then we have 3 that are 6th grade standards, and those are like linear equations, some angles. A couple that are 7th, and that's operations with integers. Getting them to understand like what happens with a positive and negative number, like what is actually happening when we multiply those, when we divide those kind of numbers, is very conceptual and hard for those students to understand. And you'll see with the scores in a minute. And I think we threw like one 8th grade question in just to kind of see like where they might be at with that. But yeah, and then we kind of followed along with the standards for midterm and the post-test.
Yeah, so we'll take a deeper dive into these assessments. So this is the pre-assessment that we gave. Day one of the academy, Like you saw, a majority of the questions were 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
So 92% of these questions are theoretically what they should have already been taught and know already.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of red. I think it was very surprising to you. I obviously chose these, what we were going to be trying to teach them. So I kind of expected this. What upsets me though is, talking about growth mindset is seeing the gray that's up there. The gray.
That's what I was gonna say, they may not.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing across the top is just the initials of the students, and reading it straight down, if it was red, obviously it was not met. If it was green, it was met, but then the gray and the yellow.
The yellow means that they attempted it more than one time and got it. The green means they answered the question correctly. Red means they answered the question incorrectly and then didn't try again. And the gray means that they did not attempt the problem at all. And talking about growth mindset, I tell the students that I would much rather see all red than any gray, because gray tells me you didn't try at all. Red at least tells me that you attempted it. So even in showing them this and being transparent with them of hey, if you feel like you bombed that test, you're not alone. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to talk about what you were misunderstanding, because your classmates are right along with you. But really emphasizing that I don't want to see gray. I want at least an attempt, even if it's wrong.
So this is where we started. These are the types of problems that we initially started week 1. And you can see it's very simple. This is maybe something that you would see, 7th, 6th grade. Again, these are incoming 8th graders. So this is where they started, and honestly, we spent about a week, maybe 2 weeks here, making sure they got it before we moved on. Again, this is equivalent to maybe a whole month worth of school, regular school. Then this was our midterm. Now, you see, we still have a lot of gray, but also a lot more green. So they're getting the questions right, but that, I don't want to get it wrong, is still there, right? So we still have some students not try a problem, but definitely they're doing a lot better, and you can see down here that over half the test was actual 7th grade standard.
So this was mostly operations with fractions and operations with integers, which we spent the first 2 weeks on. And then from there, we took the students who scored, a little bit better on this. Mr. Casares took those students, and he began teaching new content, and then I took the lower performing students and retaught for another couple of days.
I want to share one other thing too, that we recognize this was a challenge, and it is a challenge our teachers face. When we talk about classroom instruction, we're always talking about, hey, what do you do with the kids that didn't get it? Well, in a 50-minute classroom, they would tell you that's really challenging. What they had the ability to do was it wasn't tracking students at all, but it was creating an opportunity for the kids who got it. Mr. Casares got to take them and go deeper and go on. But the ones who didn't get it got to go with Ms. Toski, and she got to spend time with them reteaching. The idea of reteaching is not new, but the setting that we teach in secondary especially, reteaching, I get it, I can stand up in front of teachers and say, why aren't you reteaching? That's what you're supposed to be doing. You know what you taught them, you know what they didn't learn, go back in and reteach. But in a 53-minute period, with all the things that are part of the traditional school day, these teachers aren't able to do this. And I would say that's another really cool piece to this, is the flexibility. These kids were grouped and they changed groups. They had kids who struggled and were in the struggling group. They got to go up to the doing much better group. And then some of the kids who started out here and maybe had some struggles, they went back. So they had flexibility in the grouping, which again, I don't know how many of you are master schedulers or have worked in high schools and middle schools. It sounds like, hey, we'll just shuffle the deck every quarter. We'll shuffle the deck after, it's just not that simple. So again, this created opportunities that I know are a challenge to do in the school day. if we could figure it out, I told them really, if I could figure all this out in a regular 180-day calendar school day, I wouldn't be working at Madera Unified. I'd be traveling around telling people how to do this. But we're figuring it out in the summer, but in the regular traditional setting, it is a challenge, and that's what makes this special, I think.
In this model that I've implemented, it's non-negotiable. Our teachers will not have students low, middle, and high in their classroom. They will have either one of those groups. We actually started with 3 teachers. We have a teacher that did the middle, Ms. Toski did the lower, and Ms. decided to higher, right? Because imagine having to be the teacher and kids at all levels, it makes it super complicated.
And these are our final results on the last day of the academy. You can see a lot more green, and something that changed significantly is over 30% of the test was now 8th grade standard.
So more front loading for what they're going to be learning
So now
in the first and second units of the school year.
We had actually caught them up and were able to show them some stuff that they were about to learn in the next year. And we can see a lot less gray.
And this is including my class that was having to be retaught after the midterm. We caught up to his class.
Oh, yeah,
I set a challenge for him, and we ended really right alongside. So
let's show you some of the stuff that they were doing at the end of the academy. That is what they were doing.
This was the question that they were doing. So I had the privilege of going on the very last day to see the kids, and they had just come back in from taking their final, and this problem had been up there. And the kids could have cared less about being congratulated. They wanted Mr. Cazares and Ms. Toski to show them why they didn't get 100% on that problem. It was the most crazy thing. They were like, we were collecting the Chromebooks. We were about ready to get them on the bus, and they were like, nope, we want to know. We want you to show us why we get. I mean, it was just, you could see the transformation. And I wasn't there the whole time, but just to see these kids at the end of this academy begging to find out why they missed it and wanting to go through and figure out how to get the problem correct. I thought that was just something that stuck with me.
Yeah, and like we said, this is really about the personal growth and believing that they can, and they could, and then they came back in the winter to try it again.
And I would say coming back into winter with the same group of kids, it was so much easier to get right into math first day. Because in summer, like, we had to, build a relationship with the kids and also get them to believe in themselves to even, pick up a pencil. And coming in on the Monday of the winter academy, right to it.
The other piece I would say, remembering that these are English learners, these kids, and we have some videos, I don't know if we're gonna be able to show you all of them. These kids were 90% of the time in groups. They were talking, they were presenting, they were using math vocabulary. So again, they're getting academic language in the content area. There was reading, there was writing. So again, embedding those principles around language acquisition into this in 6.5 hours is, I think they would tell you, it's far more seamless than trying to focus on the math content and did I have them read and did I have them write and did I have them explain and did I correct and did I reteach. So there's a lot to it, but the fact that these were English learner students and long-term ELs, which you guys all know, long-term ELs can sit at these tables and talk to us and we would think nothing of it. Where they're struggling is their reading and their writing. That's why they're not scoring on the LPAC exam. That's why they're not reclassifying. And so really embedding that through math, again, these two teaching the vocabulary, teaching the language, having the students speak, having the students explain, all that was, for English learners, is also, I would say, a game changer.
And just a quick summary of the things that were in common from pre to midterm to post-test. There were more standards, but just these were the ones that were in common in each test. You can see, everything went significantly higher at the end of the academy. And I wish we had something to measure confidence, but that would go through the roof as well. And actually, we do have some surveys. So this is the student and instructor feedback. At the end, we gave a survey. How'd you like the academy? What would you change? What would you tell your district? I'll let you just look at them. for a bit. And again, if we have any questions, I know we're running out of time, we can ask them.
Actually, we're still good.
Okay.
So we're asking students to rate the instructors. Next time, the students are instructed to rate their learning assistants.
And the learning assistants, I had 2 in my classroom, Mr. Casares had 2 in his classroom, and they were amazing. They helped the students, like, it's very hard in the regular school year. I have 36 students in a normal classroom, and there's only 1 of me, and it can be very overwhelming. Miss Toski, miss, and I'm like, where do I go? And having those learning assistants in the classroom and like saying, just kind of like directing them and them taking charge and like initiative of who they were going to be helping. And there was another day where I was like, we need to split these kids up. And I took a small group, and then my 2 learning assistants, each of them took a small group to another classroom there at UC Merced, and we taught one of the instructional sections at an even smaller group lesson, and then we all came back, and it was definitely a game changer. And this is the learning assistants, the students were asking for that. If going back to the Winter Academy, is Edgar going to be there? Is May going to be there? And the chaperones as well.
And this is the confidence aspect of it. And some student responses. You can see a lot of them are about food and lunch.
So everyone, for all the academies, if you want to do an academy, the success, feed them well.
Yeah.
It is true.
Feed them well. They will come back. We actually did an academy the summer after coming back from COVID. At Fresno Pacific, kids had their mask outside. The dining commons was closed. What we did is we got them food, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's. They loved it for 4 weeks.
If you have a Canes
Oh.
near you, Canes will donate meals.
Yes.
For our migrant program, they just donated 500 meals so Canes has a very philanthropic CEO, and so our migrant program coordinator they thought, oh, they might give us, a couple baskets of chicken strips or something. No, they gave like 500 meals to us to give to a parent night in the Dairy Unified. So Canes is another good one to go to if you're looking for opportunities to, good food, and the food that is served is also something they care about. I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions, but we have a young man and a young woman who we got to answer some questions for us on video, so we'd love for you to hear that. There's also a video of kind of the whole thing. I don't think we're going to have time to show you that, but let's at least get through. I think this is the young man first. You can't hear it.
I think what this program has done for me is it's got me to my level. Like I feel like I can actually like go into 8th grade, feel confident, and know what the teacher is saying. I'm not gonna feel lost or anything. Over here, it's more engaging and it's fun. I think I would tell the district to make the math more engaging and fun. I think that if you make it funner and you let the students know that it's not that terrible, the students will learn more. Like over here, like they made it fun. So I think with that, I'll tell the district that.
Fun.
For as a student, it has made me like math more. It also helps me understand it better because of how my teacher would explain it during this program. It was a little different at school because for me, they didn't explain it well enough for me to understand, but here they did, and I understood it, and then I got it. it was different because of how they taught it. Here they taught it with fun activities and through games and learning games. But at school we didn't really do that, and they just taught us, not really through fun activities. And here I found it fun based on how they taught us, and then I ended up learning more through that. They would be to add fun activities to them, like a maze, mystery game. Cause here we learned through like fun activities, like we used math to make ice cream, which was one of the activities that we did here, and that was fun. And I got to learn math through that in that way. And I feel like they could do something like that in the district to help others like learn it in a fun way too.
And I think we'll just maybe pause here and open it up to questions, because I know we're about to end it.
So in closing, I would say we recognize that the challenge is how you take what we've shared with you today and implement it in one form or fashion in your district. I think the teachers would say, if you could address class size reduction, if you have learning recovery emergency block grant dollars that you're looking for a way to not have to write into the LCAP and spend, you could do some class size reduction in middle school math, or just thinking through how this in a summer program is super helpful. And I think we're going to continue this. Just so you guys know, we're starting a new cohort. So our commitment to this work is those students that we started with here in the summer between 7th and 8th, they did the 8th grade academy. They've now done a winter academy. They're going to do the Saturday academy, and they will get another summer academy going into their freshman year. And obviously the hope is that they will all be on track and on target. We would love for them to go into Enhanced Math 1. We would love them to enter into high school in the Enhanced Math pathway. That's number one. We are now going to be starting.
I was able to move one of our EL students that went to the academy into my enhanced class back for 8th grade. So.
And so then we're getting ready to start the recruitment process. So our current 7th graders are going to start this same cohort. Now, I love UC Merced's partnership. I don't know, it's never a guarantee, but as long as this guy and I have the support of our bosses, I think we believe in this work a ton. And I don't let it go unnoticed how lucky we are that we have UC Merced and Fresno Pacific for that matter. Because I will say, having a university partner where you get to take the kids, they get to go in the dining hall, they get to eat the cool food, they get to see the campus, they get to experience school in a different way. There's undoubtedly some of that is really important in this work. Not that it can't be done without that, but it definitely is something that helps. But we are committed to this. We have one trustee here. Last year we had 2 trustees that heard about this work and were like, why can't we do that? So we know that we have the support from our board to continue with this work. We're recruiting more teachers.
That's correct.
Yep, we're recruiting more teachers from Madera Unified to take this work on. They didn't talk about this, but what I would also say is does this work make you a better classroom teacher?
100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I changed this year after summer.
Yeah. So I think you kind of touched on it when
It's
you
the best
said,
PD.
if you want professional learning for math teachers, tell them they got to go teach math to middle schoolers for 6.5 hours a day for 4 weeks and see if they don't start really being intentional with their planning, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So part of my work is, you're probably asking, well, what do you do during the week? You work on Saturdays, you work in the summer, so what happens Monday through Friday? And that is really where my work really kicks in, and that is to work with districts, so looking at their data and how to improve the work that is taking place. taking pieces of what we do and trying to see how we can embed it. Because I don't think I said this to Ms. Sisil, and maybe I did. My role is to drive myself out of these academies. Because the academies cannot be the solution to fixing the problem. But if we use these academies to look at what works and bring those elements to the district, because where we need to make the changes, what happens Monday through Friday, from August and May or June. Because then there will not be a need for this. This Saturday was a very hectic Saturday for me. How many students do you think I had attend the first of 10 consecutive Saturdays between Bakersfield and Fresno Pacific? 244 students are committed to doing 10 Saturdays of math along with obviously our other partners. In closing, for me, I like the individuals that supported us significantly stand up. Right over here, here, here. If you can stand, please, because our job is easy. They would not have the students if it wasn't for them, so thank you very much. Any closing remarks from the teachers?
No, I'd like to open it up in case there's any questions. I know it was a lot of information.
What was the answer to the problem you made, student?
You didn't forget.
Well, I'll tell you, since you're not students, 5,050.
Yeah.
All right?
That's what you think of me.
I don't know how you solve it.
Yeah.
Easier way to solve it.
So what's the best way to solve it?
Yeah.
All right, so you pair up the numbers, 1 and 100, you get them and you add up 101, right? 2 and 99, 101. 3 and 98, 101, right? So you keep doing that, how many pairs will you have of 101? 50. So you do 50 times 101, which is 5,050.
I was lost in it.
Mind blown. If you're like me and you watch TikTok, there's a TikTok challenge for parents to get a book, and for each of your kids, you're supposed to put, like on day 1, you put $1,
That's how I
$2.
do that.
So I told you it was 5,000. I knew it was something like that. But yeah, it's all on TikTok right now as a way to save money. At the end of the year, you'll have $5,050 if you every day put, $1, $2, $3, $4 that way. Yeah.
And I know my colleague would agree to that, to this statement, is that this work wouldn't have been done because of the leader of the district. And that's the truth. Thank you for your support.